and welcome to this Sunday night charge up. Tonight, the topic of conversation is royal standard, how setting goals based upon a royal standard helps you with the continuum of their achievement. For those of you who don't know me, David Lee is my name. I'm the founder and chief coach of Leeway Mind and Body Mastery. You've heard it be said that a healthy body gets you a healthy mind, but you also need a healthy mind in order to make the decision to have a healthy body. I've been at this mind and body coaching caper for over 20 years now. I'm very proud and to be associated with High Performance Father, considering myself a high performance father of two girls who are now 25 and 24, and who, upon their birth these days, I still look at people raising children and think, wow, what a gift. It is the greatest gift that we can have as people, I think, and the opportunity to either right the wrongs or repeat the good things that have been given to us. And I think it's every generation's responsibility to make the next generation better than theirs, leaving the world in a better place than what we found it or in what we inherited. Tonight, the topic came about, given that you guys are doing 21-day challenges and there's tribal challenges and the warriors versus this, that, and the other. And Coach Adam had asked me to talk along the lines of how we can keep our mojo or keep fired up about goals, because it's people get goals and they go, oh, what now? And there's a Jim Rohn quote, which pretty much says it's not so much the goals that you set, but who you become in the pursuit of them. Myself, I remember at my 30th birthday, the guests had all left and I had a big fireplace going in the backyard, and the guests had all left and I sat in front of the fire and just thought to myself, wow, I've achieved every single thing that I wanted to achieve by the age of 40 at the age of 30. Like, what do I do now? And literally the fire said to me, now there had been a bit of alcohol consumed that night, but the fire literally said to me, you've got to set bigger goals. And I did, and I looked at where it was that I was playing and how I was carrying myself in the world. And from there, I set bigger goals. And within 2 years, I had sold that house and moved over to the Northern Beaches and bought a house over there, which was aiming a lot larger than what I was. And I was getting out of my comfort zone. And I think that was one of the greatest decisions that I had made. And I thank that fireplace very much for that epiphany. But when I say, I think it's rather than setting a goal, you need to set a standard. And a standard for mine is one that you won't go below and one that you will maintain as just the status quo. It's a given and you will accept nothing less. When I say a royal standard, the definition of a royal standard is pretty much the flag flown outside of it. It's on the naval ships of the monarchy, and it is always flown outside Buckingham Palace or wherever the monarch of the day is in residence. It's never flown at half-mast because royalty or the monarchy is considered to be in continuum. The king is dead, long live the king, whoever is the next heir to the throne, so to speak. So with that in mind, what I've looked at tonight is just ways in which you can set that standard for yourself and so that it becomes you. We think about most of the time, as a man thinketh, so he becomes, is a good book by Earl Nightingale. And it's a very short book. I'd encourage anybody or any of you to download it or to buy it from Amazon. I don't know how much it costs, but do pay particular attention when you do buy it, because the copy that I thought was very affordable at only $6.99 turned up and it was written in Hindu. So I had to read the fine print. Again, one of those things that I'll talk about tonight as far as attention to detail is concerned. Where I'm also looking or wanted to talk about tonight was just some of those things as far as goal setting is concerned. I ask people to consider what it is. There is a quote by John Maxwell that says, if you are persistent, you will get it. If you are consistent, you will keep it. It's one thing to go after a goal and too many times I watch kids and I watch dogs and I'm a watcher. Always be curious is one of the excuse me, the suggestions I will give you tonight. But I watch kids and they'll go after something and they'll get it, and then that's it. They'll leave it there. Dogs might even chase after something, they get it, and they leave it there. Unless you train that dog to bring the ball back to you, it'll chase after the ball. Great, got it, and then come back without the ball. We can be very, very similar. We can have a goal, we can go after it, we can get it, and we go, oh, well, I got that goal, so what do I do now? I am surprised by how many times I come across people who will always say to me, oh, I used to be really, really fit. And I'll say, what happened? And they'll go, well, I don't know, just it all became too much. Now, there's a Tony Robbins quote that says, nothing tastes as good as feeling thin does. I've changed that because I don't think it's my oldest daughter's a psychologist and she works with eating disorders. The worst eating disorder and the worst, when I say mental, psychological problem you can have is anorexia. It is the number one cause of death as far as, mental illnesses are concerned, because you end up starving yourself to death inadvertently. So went to a dark place there, thinking of some of the people I have worked with who have been anorexic, but have overcome that, which is good. It was their sense of self. And the reason why anorexia is one of those things, it's trying to control something. Now, what I like about goals, of course, is that they give you a sense of control. They give you a sense of understanding of where you are in life. And that's why I like to set goals around that. But there is a quote by Seneca that says, if one does not know to which port one is sailing, then no wind is favorable. So when I say, well, John Maxwell says, if you are consistent, you will get it. If you are persistent, you will get it. If you are consistent, you will keep it. You have to actually know what it is. I deal in what I call the 8 masts of mastery. Now, of those 8 masts, the first, I'll line them out to you: mental, physical, spiritual, social, financial, family, business, and romance. You have to identify what your it is in each of those areas and why you want it. I have what I also call the dream machine. I say you can run any problem through the dream machine in order to come out with a positive outcome. So the dream machine for mine is, what is it that you desire? What do you desire from a mental perspective? Now, it might be to clear the monkey mind, to have that continuous chatter turned off so you can be at peace. So, okay, what is it? I desire to have peace of mind. Is it realistic? I would like to hope so. When do you want it by? As soon as possible. So what are the action steps? Well, I could journal. Great. I could meditate. Great. I actually encourage people to journal before they meditate, because that's the brain dump. You actually journal, write out what it is that's on your mind, and then you go into the case of meditation. So then so I say desire, realistic, end time, what are the action steps, and then make it happen. And how do you make it happen? Well, buy a journal, start writing, and take the first step. Identifying, when I say what it is that you're after as well, from a physical perspective, it might be to lose 5 kilos. It has to be specific. It can't be something, you're either a wandering generality or a meaningful specific. So you need to say specifically, I need to lose 5 kilos, or I would like to lose 5 kilos, then go about the action steps, eat less and move more. Now, the other things that I wanted to talk about in respect to the goals that you set and the standards that you set, when they say the punctuality of royalty. Remember when my youngest daughter turned 18, I think it was around the time that Prince Harry got married to Meghan. Not that I'm a monarchist by any stretch, but it was the first bit of, global television that had been shown for a while. And I sat up and I watched it. At the time, my daughter was heading into Manly. It was her first big night to be legally allowed to go out and have a couple of drinks and be able to show her 18-year-old ID. And she said, what time does the wedding start? And I think it was 1 a.m. Australian time. We said 1 a.m. Australian time. She goes, great. I'll be home by 1 o'clock. No dramas. She got in at about 1:15. And as she got in, she said, well, what? They've already started. And I said, haven't you heard of the expression, the punctuality of royalty? And if you think about any of those things, they happen on the time. We have a clock and we keep time for a reason. 12 o'clock is 12 o'clock. It's not 12:01. On time is late in my books, I like to say. And the reality of it is, set a time, set a standard. And that's where for any of these standards that you set for yourself, you need to communicate to the people around you what those standards are. Now, I say upfront, very, very often, I've had a client who said to me once, well, my husband is of the Baha'i faith. And when I met him, it didn't bother me. And I said, and now it does? And she said, well, now he wants me to come along to Baha'i gatherings and meet his Baha'i friends. And that's where I say, if it is one of those deal breakers. I have another client who it was no problem for him that his partner was a Christian or a devout Christian, but then he didn't like the idea that she wanted to get the children christened. That's what they do in the Christian faith. So it was kind of inevitable. So the reality of that is upstream and upfront, you need to communicate what your standard is. And the standard, the communication of your standards is setting boundaries. And when I say boundaries aren't barricades, you can change your standards, but in my case, or in my suggestion, I would suggest you only change them by raising your standards, not lowering your standards. You don't lower your standards because it's too hard. You try harder. A couple of things I wanted to raise. Hollow victory. Now, the idea of consistency. There was a man by the name of R.U. Darby, and Napoleon Hill refers to in his book, Think and Grow Rich. Now, the greatest quote that I got out of that book was, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So whatever your goals are, if you can conceive of them and believe that you will achieve them, you will, if you go about them diligently and through some of the steps that I'll talk about tonight. But this R.U. Darby, during the gold rush in America, had found a little bit of gold on a bit of land that he had purchased. He convinced his family and friends to loan him some money for some gold mining equipment. They loaned him the money, he got the equipment, and he started digging. After a while, he ran out of gold. Disheartened, he sold the gold mining equipment to a junkman who, not as silly as R.U. Darby, consulted a mining engineer who they both determined and understood that gold runs in seams. It doesn't run down like oil does. They picked up the seam about 3 feet from where R.U. Darby had left it. And now the gold that fills the vaults of Fort Knox is sourced from that seam of gold from all those years ago. It was a hollow victory for R.U. Darby. He had all of these great plans, but he didn't get there in the end. That's when I ask yourselves, when you ask what it is that you're after in a mental, physical, spiritual, social, financial, family, business, and romance perspective, what is it? Why do you want it? What will it give you? And if all of those it's and why you want them, what they will give you, etc., don't add up to something that melds in with your overarching principles. And as I say, my highest priority is peace of mind. And if I have a goal, let's just say I set a goal to run a marathon, and I think, well, will it give me peace of mind? And as I'm going along, I think, well, I've got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's not peace of mind. Now, I wouldn't decide that as I'm going along, which I'll talk about tonight as well. But you want to understand what it'll give you and if it will compromise your overall principle. And so my first suggestion in anything is working out, when I say working out who you are, know thyself, one of the oldest philosophical maxims in the world. Know thyself and know what thyself means or needs more than anything else. When we talk about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he goes through the different levels of needs of a human being, and the highest need being that of self-actualization, which is knowing that we're using our gifts and abilities to our greatest order, that we're using them for the best and for why we were given them. The next victory that I've talked about is a Pyrrhic victory. Closely, when I talk about that marathon suggestion, a Pyrrhic victory comes from, it's named after King Epirus, who at the Battle of Asculum in 274 BC, he won the battle, but he had destroyed so much of his army throughout the course of it. He lost so much. That's where the expression winning the battle but losing the war comes from, or thereabouts. I liken it to high intensity interval training. People go, okay, you know what I'm going to do? Because if you want to lose a lot of weight very, very quickly, you do high intensity interval training. It's not as much, it's not long distance work, but it's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off is one form of it, known as Tabata. You do that 8 times. You might do 20 seconds sprinting, 10-second break. Could be 20 seconds on the row machine, 10 seconds break. Now that's great, but it does have a deleterious effect on the body. It can break you down. I ran a half marathon, the one and only, when I was about 40, and I've never recovered from it. This is 16 years later. When I say never recovered, my back still gives me grief from that. I've had a back operation since then. I beat everybody I was supposed to. So it was a Pyrrhic victory. I won, got a bit of money, but I almost crippled myself in the process. And I literally took a couple of days off work. And after I crossed the finishing line, went straight to the St. John ambulance tent. And then eventually, lucky I was wearing compression gear, because it wouldn't have been a pretty sight externally. So be careful of the goals that you set, and that not only do they level up or ladder up to your highest priority, which should be peace of mind or whatever that is for you, rather, but they don't actually destroy that in the process. Some people who I think have overcome things that I wanted to mention. Helen Keller, blind from the age of 19, had written 12 books and was the first blind person ever to receive the Bachelor of Arts in Learning for her efforts. That's not so much. So that's the idea of saying, quite often we say, oh, we can't do it. We set a goal. You might think, I did see a post earlier on tonight from one fellow who said, whatever had happened, I didn't read it because it popped up in my feed, but it said, whatever had happened, he's going to have another crack at the 21-day challenge. And I thought, brilliant. That's what it's about. The idea that he had another crack at it because he didn't get it, that's fantastic. The idea of saying there is an Aesop's fable, and it's where the expression sour grapes came from, and it's about a fox, and the fox is walking along and he sees a luscious bunch of grapes hanging from a fence. He says, oh, gee, that'd be lovely. Jumps up. He has a few goes at it, misses it, can't get to them. So he turns around and he says, oh, well, I bet you they were sour anyway. That's how he dealt with his inability to achieve what it was that if he'd been clever and cunning as a fox, he may have found another way around getting those grapes. But quite often we have sour grapes because we don't achieve what it is we set out for. We look for somebody else to blame. One of my overarching mantras is, as it is to be, it is up to me. I used to say, if it is to be, it is up to me. I've since changed that to as, because if suggests doubt. And there's a Peter Pan quote that says, the moment you doubt you can fly, you cease forever to be able to do so. There's the level of if involved. The only place I like to use the word if, or the only place where I think the word if has any weight, is in Rudyard Kipling's poem, If, which somebody posted recently as well in the chat. And my greatest line out of that is, if you can keep your head while all around are losing theirs. And the idea of setting these goals and the royal standard is just that. The royal standard for mine is also knowing that I know that when the stuff hits the fan, I've got this. I was out kayaking once. I was only reminded of it today, and we'd all kayaked from Manly Beach across to Q Station, and we get to Q Station, we had a few drinks, and we get back in the kayaks. Now, there was 2 options. You could kayak back, or you could stay around and have more drinks, and they were going to tow you back by looping the kayaks together, and they're going to tow you back to Manly. That's great. I took the option of being towed back to Manly with most of the people, and a few people kayaked back early. In the course of being dragged back by the boat, one of the ferries went by as a bit of a wash, and people panicked and they went overboard. And in the course of going overboard, even myself and my mate, he's 15 years younger than me, but I considered a very level-headed fellow, but he too panicked. I got back into the kayak and I said, jump on in, mate. It's all right. I'll hold it. And I noticed everybody was panicking. And I said to him, mate, calm down. It's all right. We'll get everybody on. And what I noticed was the more the people panicked, the more the people panicked. And as I kept my head while all around were losing theirs, it was my ability to say, hey, it's all right. It's all right. Now, I had a life jacket on. I knew about that. I had even planned by putting my prescription sunglasses into a waterproof bag earlier, and my phone and everything else, just in case. I had expected that it wouldn't happen, but it did happen. And yet there were people complaining about the fact that they lost their phones and all that. We're all given waterproof bags. They didn't think of what the worst thing was that could possibly go wrong, and they certainly didn't keep their heads while all around were losing theirs. Another great figure throughout history, Beethoven, who was profoundly deaf from the age of 30, however, created his greatest masterpieces from that day on. And then there's James Earl Jones, who's got a phenomenal voice and was actually the voice of Darth Vader, who was actually a stutterer for most of his life until he got speech lessons and stuck at it from a persistence and consistency perspective in order to become the man that he is. Now, getting into the areas of, when I say, I want to start with the idea that if you are persistent, you will get it. And if you are consistent, you will keep it. So the first one, I've got 8 of these for each of them with respect for your time. But the idea being you need to develop a growth mindset being number 1. Now, the idea that if you're green, you'll grow, and if you're ripe, you will rot. When I was younger, I was about the age of 8, and I'd say to my father, Dad, when do you die? And he said, well, you die the day you stop learning. What my father was doing was giving me the child's mind's version of the idea that the day you think you know it all, that's, the cards are up. Many people have been attributed with this quote, but Frank Sinatra was where I'd heard it, where he said, if you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room. My further research showed that it was Confucius. For the first time I heard it, I thought it was Frank Sinatra who had said it. And there's a good lesson to that. We talk about epigenetics, and that you become the person you become is based on the people you spend most of your time with. I'm a massive people watcher, and it's Manly Jazz Festival's on at the moment, and I've been watching hordes come in off the ferry, and it is unbelievable that obviously there are cultural nuances and things like that, but the amount of people I saw who I actually saw their stomachs before I saw them walking along, literally, and their partner and their friends and their children all massively overweight. I'd then be sitting in places. Now, obesity is a worldwide crisis, particularly in America. I think it's over 73% of Americans are obese. But even as I sat there today, and one of the things I talk about is mindfulness, and that if you actually sit down and eat your meal mindfully, and you really enjoy that meal, you will enjoy it a lot more because you've had a mindful approach to it. I had a mindfully enjoyable lunch this afternoon, but I was watching this one particular obese woman eat. She was literally shoveling the food in while she spoke to her friends, and it was a bit of toast. And if she was mindful, she would have put it in horizontally, but she's trying to get this toast into her mouth horizontally, vertically rather. And after a while, she's gone, oh, and she worked around it, survival, I guess. But as I watched, I thought, wow, I think part of your problem, lady, is that you're actually mindlessly consuming food. And how often do we just mindlessly consume, mindlessly partake? And I think there's a real gift. Not only does life offer a lot more as far as the value you get out of life by being present, and mindfulness is, of course, a form of presence, but the more present you are in each of the activities that you do, the more mindful you are of them, the more alive and the more present, the more you get out of that experience. And again, people have goals and they're not really that attached to them. That's why you have to have your own goals. I find it a good thing that you guys have your challenges, but I also think you should go up one. Now, ever since when I say that, I mean, make it your own. Find a twist on that challenge that makes it even harder. I was doing a boot camp yesterday, and I really try to put a lot of effort into these boot camps so that they're entertaining and people don't get bored, or so they're not predictable. Because once things are predictable, they become easy. And I'd worked all these things out, and I'm always learning. What I'd done is I had numbered all the exercises. So I'd set up there's supposed to be only 24 people booked in, but people just turn up, and I don't mind. I'll never turn anyone away. But I set up for 30 people. So I had 5 stations, and I catered for 6 people on each. So one station had 6 mats. They were all going to be doing abdominal sort of stuff. These ones I had dumbbells. That one was body weight. This one was kettlebells. And this one was dead balls. And there was another one of body weight. And I'd written them down. And each person was going to do the workout for a minute, then run around the circle, come back, start the next one, run around the circle till they'd done all 5. Then they'd get a break and move on. This went well. Point was, I get to the, and I've explained it all properly. And no matter how well you explain anything, you then look at it, what the hey are you doing? How did you work to do that? Now I turn up to one stage and all they had to do was bicep curls. And they're all kneeling down doing it. And I said, who told you to do that? And one of the guys said, oh, I just started. And they said, we just copied him. And I said, why are you doing that? And he said, because it's easier. And I said, what's the point? Like, that to me just didn't make sense. Now, the brain is programmed to find the easiest way to do anything. We are born with 2 fears, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Every other fear we've inherited. Every other fear we've created. Every other fear might have been given to you by someone else's limiting beliefs or by their own fears. Some are almost genetically inherited. You can be a child of an anxious mother and become an anxious child, basically being surrounded by that person. And that's what happens. But you've got to break past those and also understand that the brain is programmed to keep you safe and to keep you weak. It will always take the easiest option. So you've got to be aware. So whenever I was training, I've always, the one mantra that I heard as a young kid was one more rep. And even in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about a friend of his who was a physical trainer who got him on the bench press and said, once you get to the final, it's in the ones that are hard that the muscle grows. And so for me, I lived off the one more rep phrase for many, many years. And now it's like 5 more reps. And I found my training results have become so much better by doing 5 more reps than what I could have done. Now, it's getting out of hand because sometimes I'm like 6. But what I'm wanting for that response, I'm obviously not putting myself into a position of danger or damage or pain for that matter, but I'm actually wanting results of muscle being the longevity organ. The more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolism, and the more you can process the foods and hormones that we need for that. Number 2, in your quest for persistency is, sorry, just had a bit of there, embracing failure as feedback. So it's never, when people give me feedback, and they give it to me a lot, I don't take it as failure. I used to be very, what's the word? Emotional. I would think with my emotions rather than, and I'm lucky I had a coach probably about 30 years ago who said, you have to remove all emotion. You have to take it as feedback, not failure. There are people who actually say things to you with a specific purpose of wanting to unsettle you and rattle you. But in this case, when people say to me, I don't mind people saying things, it's when they ask me questions that I kind of go, where are you going with the question? And the very first time I took an outdoor boot camp for this Manly Beach Health Club, a woman came up to me afterwards and she said to me, what is your objective for the class? And I sat there and I said, can you explain what you mean? And I must have said it in a way that was a bit flustered. And she said, oh no, I want to know, like, are you, and I said, what do you want out of it? What have you been getting? And she says, well, Adam used to do this and Kenny used to do that and all that sort of thing. And I said, well, I guess my objective in any case is longevity. I want people to live long and healthy lives. We don't stop playing because we get old because we stop playing, George Bernard Shaw said. And so everything I work with people on is the ability for them to be able to continue to do things. And I'll often point out old people walking along the promenade. I'll say they didn't start yesterday, they just didn't stop yesterday. And I think that's one of those benefits. So ask for feedback. Quite often, I will say to people at the end of it, I love it when people come up and say, that's great. And They say, you're the only trainer who doesn't ask to get a 5-star rating. I don't care about the 5-star rating. I want feedback in the present moment. If I have to then go and look for an appreciation. Now, having said that, I do love the old great talk, Dave. Really appreciate it at the end of these, and I do sit up and read through them. And you may notice that I do respond. Now, that's not asking for that feedback, but if there are any questions that ever come up as a result of any of the things that I talk about, always feel free to drop me an email, david@leeway.com.au, and you guys do know that I answer those. So do let me know that. Number 3 in any of the royal standards that you set is celebrating success. I'm a massive fan of celebrating success. I mean, I will celebrate the smallest little triumph that I can. Not to the point where the celebration undoes the triumph, but I think it's really, really important to celebrate those wins and even the smallest thing. Now, I say in setting your goals, you've got to break them down into little pieces as well. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. But each little will become a lot if you celebrate the little that you got. Number 4, I say you've got to give yourself some leeway. It's no coincidence that my business is called Leeway, and people assume like there's a brand called 2 times you, but everyone thinks it's 2x you, but it's actually 2 times you, because when you wear the compression gear, you become twice the person, that you would have been if you didn't wear the compression gear. Leeway means the degree of freedom you allow yourself. It's a nautical term. Not that I'm a great sailor, but a lot of the stuff that I work with is along the lines of mastery, leeway, shipping terms, even the royal standard, again, being the flag that the monarchy raises on any of the fleets that they're on, or ships that they're on, rather. But the idea of leeway is cutting yourself a bit of slack. You can give yourself a little bit of slack. Even when I say cheat day, for me, it's treat day. 1 day a week, I go ballistic, probably have between 7,000 and 8,000 calories, and I enjoy myself, but then that's a good enough thing for everything to reset and to make it so worthwhile through the course of the week to do all the training and the abstemiousness that I have. So give yourself a bit of leeway. Now, leeway, as I say, is the little bit off course that you go. Leeward is coming back on course. That's my job, is to help you get back on course. Number 5 is hold yourself accountable. Whenever I'm asked what the greatest benefit of having a coach is, I say it's accountability. The job of a coach is to hold you accountable to what it is you say that you want it. What do you want? What is it? Why do you want it? What will it give you? And how are we going to get it together? And all I'm going to do is say, hey, you wanted this. You said you wanted that. You said it was the most important thing for you. And you know why you said it was? Because you wanted your children to be proud of you. They're going to be proud of you if you keep doing it. So you've got to work out what that is. You have to hold yourself accountable. And by that, you have to set some levels of measurability in place. If it's measurable, it is manageable. Number 6, don't listen to the naysayers. That's an Arnold Schwarzenegger quote. I say, listen to the yaysayers. There is a German expression, Schadenfreude, where people are genuinely unhappy at your misfortune. Then there is Mitfreud, where people are genuinely happy for your good fortune. I say they're the yaysayers. The naysayers are the people who mock you for having cold showers, mock you for whatever else. Now, there's a joke that goes, a vegan, a CrossFitter, and an atheist walked into a bar. I know that because they told everyone within 1 minute of walking in there. I say be a vegan. I don't mind. I'm an omnivore. I love my meat. And since I've been eating steak every day, I've had the most phenomenal, my cholesterol's gone down, my blood pressure's gone down, all of the biomarkers that you need to have on par have all been fine. Inflammation levels, all that sort of thing. But it's also my blood type, O positive, is a red meat based diet. So it works well for me. My point there is when people say to me, oh, this, that, and the other, the less people I tell, the better. If somebody asks me what I eat or how I train, then they're not asking to make fun of me. They're asking for advice. And I think role models are, if someone thinks, I will be 56 next month, and if somebody thinks, oh, well, that bloke's in good stead for 56, what does he do? Now, genetics helps a lot. My father still looked about 60 when he was 85. I do think that works well, but we all have a genetic or a genome that's been passed on to us. When people say to me, wouldn't it be great to have a crystal ball? I say we do. Most people have too, and they're called our parents. And if you're crystal balling or gazing into the future, if your parents have had heart problems, high blood pressure, then do everything in your power to get your blood pressure down and make sure you don't have heart problems. If your parents are alive and lean and sprightly, follow their lifestyle. Do exactly what they do. Number 7, focus on the process. As I said earlier on, when Jim Rohn says, it's not so much the goals that you set or even achieve, it's who you become in the process. I wrote my book for a variety of reasons, but what amazed me most, the fact that I'd started writing it 6 years prior to recommencing the writing for various reasons, and I finished it in 4 months, is that in that 4-month period, who I was at the end of that was a completely different person in a lot of respects, in obviously positive respects, than who I was at the commencement or recommencement of that book. And it will be anything. I mean, the idea that I work with mind and body, excuse me, is clearly because people don't see mental change as readily as they do see and feel physical change. When clients can't turn up to me and go, wow, I've been able to fit in this shirt for years, I think that's gold, and when they can't fit in the shirt because they're busting out of it, that's even better if that was their goal. Number 8, I've got here, slowly catch the monkey. I think success is in the waiting. It's in the patience. As much as persistence is one of the things, persistent gets it, consistent keeps it. Impatience is another word for inconsistency. And patience is another word for persistence. You persist patiently, and you have to say, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And little by little, a little becomes a lot. There's a quote by Jacob Riis, who said, it's not the first or the last blow of the sculptor's hammer that breaks the marble, but every single one. And that can be good, bad, or otherwise. When I see people picking up weights like this, I say, hey, one day you're going to say, I just went to the mailbox. It wasn't that. It was every single time you pick something up the wrong way, you did a little bit of damage. Little by little, a little becomes a lot, good, bad, or otherwise. But every single step you take today is one less you have to take tomorrow. Martin Luther King Jr. said that, but the idea being that if you've got a plan, just take the first step. Today's the first day of the rest of your life. You've set the goals in place. Why haven't you gone after them? There are those of you who are sitting out there right now tonight who would know that you've been after something for quite some time and you just haven't got it. You haven't got it because you haven't deemed it. My father used to say, it wasn't that you forgot, it's that you thought so little of it, you didn't think it was worthwhile remembering. Whatever your most important goals are, they should be tattooed on your face. Obviously not literally, but the idea being that, it has to be your mantra. It has to be your theme. It has to become you. It has to consume you to the point of not obviously anything detrimental. These things have to be good. And you have to know that by getting them, you're going to be a better person. The people around you are going to get a better person, that they're going to want to be around you more. Oscar Wilde said, some people bring joy wherever they go, others whenever they go. You want to be the sort of person who every time they go, oh, Uncle Jarek's coming, that's brilliant, because you're on their way. And you need to know that when you're going places, people are excited to see you there as well. Excuse me. So number 1 on the consistency perspective is you need to set clear, realistic, and smaller goals. When I talk about what is it you desire, is it realistic? What's the end time? What are the action steps? And make it happen. The action steps are where you break it down. So you might break it down today. I might want to say lose 5 kilos. So what do I want to do? All right, avoid wheat, dairy, and sugar for 2 weeks. That'll pretty much lose 3 of those kilos. So break it down. What's the first thing? No bread. Good. No beer. Good. No cakes. Good. No sugar. Not that I would have it anyway. But they're the little things. And you say, okay, that's that. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. You have to decide in the decision-making process of those goals, of what it is that you need to consistently do, what it is. What is it you need to do consistently, day after day, all day long, or at least as soon as you get up, in order to have it that it is that you say you want? Which leads me into the second of the 8, which is creating a routine. I've sent you guys, or anyone who asked, my morning routine, not to say, hey, look what I do, but how I do it and why I do it. And there's a big difference. Why are you doing something? Is it going to give you the result? And always being curious and asking the question, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? That's why I'm doing it. Having that routine, it means you don't have to make any decisions either. My morning goes so much so on autopilot, I don't have to worry about anything. I have a lot more clarity in my mind to think about what it is I'm doing that day with the plans that I had outlined earlier. We repeatedly do, Aristotle said. Excellence then must become a habit. The royal standard is that of excellence. It's your highest self. It's saying, okay, what does the best version of me look like? What does the best version of me sound like? What does the best version of me not do? What does the best version of me do when he walks into a pub? What does the best version of me do when women walk by? Whatever the best version of you, as you've already seen or foreseen, that's who you become now. The idea of faking it till you make it. I say fake it till you make it in everything but sincerity. If you want to be a writer, Epictetus said, write. All of a sudden, you're a writer. I was writing something today. I used to be the sort of person who was hunt and peck. And I was writing something today. I do a daily quote for the day. So with my clients, I used to send them a text every day, and it was called the QFT, the quote for today. And it was designed as a journaling prompt. So when they get that quote, it would be a quote from, let's just say it was Aristotle. We repeatedly do. Excellence then must become a habit. And the idea of that was to stimulate their thought for them to journal. Now, I was sending it out to my clients, and that's great. The more clients I got, the more texts I had to send. But I missed a really important, one of my clients' mother had died. And I didn't know until later in the day. And it was only because I was going through, I had time to think. Now, while I was sending out the quote for the day, this fellow responded and said, thank you, this is very poignant. My mother died last night. And I missed it. Not till later on in the day. And I thought, oh no, that is terrible. This, and I have one of these things, and I'll get to it later, premeditatio malorum. I didn't think the worst thing that could possibly go wrong was that I'd missed an important detail for an important person in my life. And so what I've since done is I've upgraded it to emails. So now I'm sending an email out to each of my clients, and it's a quote for the day, and it's a few questions that I'm asking. I love it. I'm getting some phenomenal feedback on that, and I'm enjoying the process. So if anyone would like to be on the mailing list for that, it's a simple 1-minute read. You'll get it at 6 o'clock every morning. You'll get it about 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and you'll get it at 9 o'clock on a Sunday. Appreciating that some people's phones might wake them up because they don't want you unsubscribing. I'd like you to benefit from it. As I say, it's free. But david@leeway.com.au, and just write DDQ QFT. David doesn't quit is my thing, but it's a daily dose quote. Daily dose quote for today. You write that in the subject heading. Tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, ideally, if I can add you tonight, you'll go on the mailing list and you'll start getting that email. So creating a routine, we repeatedly do. Number 3 is prioritizing your tasks. Now, the word priorities didn't exist prior to the 14th century. The word was priority. Industrialization and the world changing came along, and all of a sudden we have the word priorities. Now you have to decide every day what your priorities are rather than your priority. I know you guys have myths, the most important thing. Wolfgang von Goethe said, the things which matter most must never be at the mercy of the things which matter least. You have to decide what matters the most. And you've also got to decide what are those things that don't matter. When they say don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff, where are you in the thick of thin things? Where are you doing things that don't really matter a jigger to the real scheme of things, but are getting in the way of you doing the things that are the most important things and the things that you say were your it in each of those areas. So from that, prioritizing your tasks. Number 4, I've said that a little by little becomes a lot. Start small, and don't go at it at once. Now, I've written 2 people's names down here who joined the boot camp. Now, I do boot camp boxing and strength classes down on Manly Beach, and new people come along, and I ask them what their goals are, and they'll tell me. And then I'll see, okay, that guy Bryce was at my boot camp in the morning. Now he's fronted up for boxing in the afternoon. Now he's done the strength class. Now he's doing it again tomorrow. You're supposed to wait 48 hours between working the same muscle groups because that's how they grow. Muscles grow when you rest. Muscles also grow by repetition, not by weight. You gain more strength by lifting heavy. You get more muscle by lifting time under tension. So my rep range for building muscle is 25 reps. So I might have a barbell and I'll squat it 25 times, I'll curl it 25 times, I'll do whatever. Once a week, I do a strength workout. So Friday, it's a full body workout. So 5 military press, as much as I could lift 5 times. I did 5 chin-ups because that's all I can do. But that was my opposing thing from there. 5 squats, 5 deadlifts, 5 inverted rows, not to put the pressure on my lower back, and 5 bench press. Now I did 5 sets of 5. So 5 of that, 5 of that, 5 of that. I've done the whole body in that workout. I'm still buzzing from that workout, and I did that on Friday. Yesterday, I just did a weighted backpack. But the idea of saying, okay, that's what I'm doing, but I know why I'm doing it. Now, both these people, because the other lady, she was turning up at my 6 a.m. strength class and staying and doing the 6:45 strength class. She did double up. Both of them, sick as dogs. They've been sick for the last 2 weeks, and I knew it would happen. It's it's inevitable. You can't race at a problem. That's the Pyrrhic victory. They're losing the weight, but they're losing themselves in the process. There's even a quote in the Bible that says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world, but in the course of it loses his soul? And I ask people to identify what your soul is. For me, on some days, my soul is sleep. I say clear conscience is the best sleeping tablet, but your soul, they say your soulmate cares about your soul as well. But no one should care more about your soul than you. Plato said thinking is the soul talking with itself. So where in the course of your day do you set aside time to think and to have a conversation with yourself? Ideally, it should be journaling. For me, the journaling process, first thing in the morning, is my first conversation I have with myself. I say good morning to myself in the mirror, of course, smile away, tell myself I'm a legend, and laugh at the fact that nobody else is out there at that hour of the morning having cold showers. But I've got to give myself a pat on the back. Encouragement is the highest form of acknowledgement. Acknowledgement, rather, is the highest form of encouragement. Self-acknowledgement is the highest form of encouragement. And encouragement, it is said, is verbal sunshine for the soul. Number 5 is it's got to be measurable. Any of your goals have to be measurable. Excuse me. If it's measurable, it's manageable. And if it gets scheduled, it gets done. So in the course of the Sundays where I do it, I sit down and I go, okay, I'm going to schedule in my week. I have a calendar, I have it color-coded, and I'll go, right, 15 minutes reading. Boom, it's in there. 1 hour exercise, it's in there. Further in the day, 15 minutes exercise, it's in there. They're all color-coded. Call my mother, have dinner with a friend, mental, physical, spiritual, social, financial, family, business, and romance. I scheduled time, it's in. Now come at me, world. Can you see me at 10 o'clock? No, I cannot. See you at 11, though. Somebody sent me a text today. Any chance I can move till 6 o'clock on Tuesday? Too late. I had already put 6 o'clock Tuesday as my training time. I'm not going to compromise my number 1 client for somebody else. Lovely client, really like her. Sorry you can't make it. She's going to have to do it next week. Now, I felt a little bit bad about that because, as I say, I never turn anyone away who wants to, 1, train, and 2, pay. But the idea was I was going to be turning me away. And I preach what I practice. I can't be saying to people, oh, listen, you can't pour from an empty cup. When the announcement comes down from the plane that when the oxygen mask comes down, fix yourself for anyone else. I'm no good to anybody unless I'm good to myself. If I don't feel 1,000,000%, then no one gets 1,000,000% from me. They get a half-assed version of me that I don't like and that you don't deserve. So when I say it's measurable, it's manageable, excuse me, one of the first things I do of a morning is I step on my scales. Automatically, I know my footprint on the planet, and it goes 88.8. Brilliant. That's what I wanted it to be. Then I'll drink my 750 mils of water. There was a while there where I was drinking that, then getting on the scales, but I've just put 3/4 of a kilo on through fluid without even realizing that doesn't make sense. Oh, later on I'm okay. The MyZones are great things. These things are good. getting the mils and grams worked out. Like, you need 2.2 grams of protein for every kilo of body weight. If you're not hitting your protein macros, you're not going to build muscle. It doesn't matter that you got 70% of them. You're not going to build muscle to the degree that you need to unless you're hitting your daily macros. You won't even, it just doesn't make sense to me that people want this and they do that, but they fall short. It's like, no, if you need to do 25 working sets of a muscle group a week to get benefits from that muscle, and you need to eat 2.2 grams of protein for every kilo of body weight in order to build that muscle, and you only do 20 working sets and you have 2 grams, you're not going to get the muscle. Oh, what happens? It's the PT's fault. No, he gave you the formula. You didn't follow it. So it's got to be measurable. It's got to be manageable. You've got to work out what your macros are. As much as I started the call by saying, when Seneca says to the one who doesn't know which port he's sailing, no wind is favorable, you've also got to know which port you're leaving from. Excuse me. I had a function this afternoon that I was talking at for a while as well. So the idea being, this is where you're at. This is where you need to go. You can't get there like that. So you have to plot the process and understand there's going to be a time involved. If it's going to take 12 weeks, it's going to take 12 weeks. Now, one of the things, excuse me, one of the greatest things that I can guarantee you from the perspective of consistency is it's almost like one day it just clicks. You can be training. People sit there and they'll tell me their goals. And I sit down with people at the beginning, the very first day, and I call it their discovery or strategy session. Excuse me. And we sit there and I say, what do you want? What is it that you want in each of the masters of mastery? And they tell me, I say, green fields, blue skies, magic wand. What do you want? Is it realistic? When do you want it by? And I laugh. And I laugh, not only is laughter my shock mechanism, but I laugh because I see who they will be in that period of time. I know that it is realistic and I can see it, but they can't. I can see it because I've seen it so many times before. I can see it because even when a client turns up and I can tell something's going on because they don't look like they normally look, and then all of a sudden their eyes pop. And it's where the endorphins have been released. And what doesn't make sense to me is that people know that exercise and sunlight release dopamine, the reward and motivation hormone, and serotonin, the feel-good hormone. They don't do the things that they know are going to give them a reward, motivate them, and feel good. What's the point? If you knew that by taking an antidepressant every day, you wouldn't be depressed, and you didn't take it, you're going to be depressed. Exercise, eating well, sunlight, they're nature's antidepressant. Anxiety, depression, real things. But how many of us are in our own way in creating situations of anxiety and depression because we're not doing the small stuff. We're not just taking the simple steps. We're not measuring and managing our time and our commitment to our goals. Number 6, and I hinted at it earlier on, premeditatio malorum, the Latin expression that says the premeditation of evils that may lie ahead. So when I say to people, okay, what is it you want? Why do you want it? What do you have to do to get it? And what will it give you? Great. What is going to get in the way of it? So who's going to be out there putting the SH in front of your IT, your it? Who's the ones who are going to be dousing your dreams and your goals? Who are the people? What are the things that are getting in the way? If you say, I'm going to save $5,000 to go on holidays in June, you need to work out what your expenses are for all of the time from here to then, because that's going to derail the $5,000. If you all just save $100 a week, that's great. But did you count for those? No. So always thinking what are the worst things that can both possibly go wrong. So you're looking for the obstacles and the setbacks. As much as Marcus Aurelius said, the obstacle is the way, not if it's in the way of and it's immovable. So yes, get over that, but work around it. Number 7, Dorothy Parker said, the cure for boredom is curiosity. There is no cure for curiosity. I think in any setting of standards for yourself, always be curious. There's that line from Glenn Ross that he says, always be closing, ABC. I say the same thing. ABC is always be curious. Be curious about the potential that your body has. Be curious about the knowledge that you can gain when you commit to it. I had a fellow the other day saying to me, he's curiously enough trying to read Atomic Habits, and he just can't start. Every time he starts, his mind go? And I said, have you been journaling? And he says, yeah. And I said, when? He goes, well, generally I journal that I can't read properly. And I said, no. Journal before you read. Clear your mind. I know there's Alex Hormozy who says, before these morning routine stuff, just get in there and do the work. He says that now, but he did all this beforehand. He then got a level of accountability and a level of success ahead of him. So he doesn't need to do that. I do it because when I say I'm a preventative hypochondriac, I'm also a little bit superstitious to the degree that I think everything goes so well when I do everything I say it is that I need to do. If I've already worked out what I need to do to have a great day, why wouldn't I do it? Why am I going to throw some random thing in there or leave something out? Because I don't know which one of those makes me feel the way I do, or with the removal of any of those is not going to make me feel the way I do, then I'm not prepared to take the risk. And that's why time management is life management. Bruce Lee said, if you love life, you'll love time, because time is what life is made up of. So break down your time and the time required to set that royal standard. The punctuality of royalty should be one of your overarching goals. So be curious about what it is that you're after, why it is that you want it, and what it is that you have to do. And be curious about your own progress. Be curious about your own success, like the curiosity of a child. The final one, right on time, is you need to visualize your success. So you have to see, as much as I say, I can see what you're going to have at the end of the 12 weeks, you need to see it. You need to see it for what it will be. You need to feel it. You need to feel what it will feel like. You need to imagine the emotions that you will experience, the feelings you will have, what type of person you'll become. If you visualize who you want to become and it's not who you want to become, then you need to change the channel or you need to change the process. If you see that the places you're about to go are going to make you do things. I had a client once who in a roundabout way told me he'd been unfaithful to his wife, and in a roundabout way had gone into a brothel, and in a roundabout way was addicted to porn. And he kept saying all of these things in a roundabout way. And so in a roundabout way, I said to him, okay, if you have a gambling problem, you stay out of the casinos. If you have a gambling problem, you take the sports bet apps and all the gambling apps off your phone. If you have a gambling problem, you don't ask people to come in. You don't ring bookies and ask them to come to your house and place the bets. So avoid all of those things that are causing you to do the things that you don't want to do. So as much as you're visualizing success, you're also visualizing all the things that you don't want to happen, making sure they don't happen, and you know yourself and saying that sets me off. That sets me on the wrong course. Even in the Bible, when Jesus says, when you pray, pray as though you already have a thing. So I pray. I'm a big believer in prayer. I think prayers are verbal articulations of your goals, but I also thank God for what I have. And one of my prayers is I thank God for the gifts and graces he's bestowed upon me. I pray that I use those gifts and graces to the best of my ability today. I also pray that I'm aware of the times that I'm using them with gratitude and humility, and that I'm aware of the times that I'm not using them or that I could be, and I change that with correction and moral rectitude. It's amazing how often I'll sit there and I'll think, like the neighbor's brother's out the front of the wheelchair and I'm running. All right, I'll help him carry the wheelchair up. Now, it made me late, it hurt my back, but I was there, and it's that prayer, that verbal articulation of what my North Star is to make sure that I'm doing the right thing by that. So, gentlemen, if any of you would like, as I say, to be on the mailing list for my daily email, it's obviously a lot of what I talk about. It's in bite-sized chunks that you can digest within a minute. It's one of the first things you can consider of a day. And the idea is it's quotes for thoughts and a few questions. david@leeway.com.au. Any other questions from tonight, please send me an email. And I had great feedback from everybody who got the audiobook. So thank you for that. It launches in November. Book's doing really well. Thank you very much for your support there as well. So if anyone wants an ebook, I can give you a free ebook of that as well. david@leeway.com.au. Reads very well off your phone, but I think the quote for the day should help you. With that, gentlemen, I thank you again for your time. Set the standard. It's not who you become in the process, of course. It's not the goals that you achieve, it's who you become. So set the standard that you want to set. be royal in your own fashion, act like a king to be treated like a king. But you know what a king does when nobody's looking, and ideally that's a good thing. Be the king, be the man, set the royal standard. Have a wonderful evening.